Hello everybody, how's it going? It's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, and welcome to my coverage of SpaceX's launch today for KoreaSat 5A. Now this is a these days, pretty standard launch of a 3,500 kilogram satellite, and SpaceX is launching on top of their Falcon 9 rocket, as always, for now, and they're setting it off to a geostationary transfer orbit. This is a fairly light payload, it's only 3,500 kilograms, that means there's plenty of margin left to be able to send this baby up into geostationary transfer orbit and still have plenty of margin to land the first stage. So hopefully they'll make this number, let's see, what are we at? We are at 15. If they land this stage today, it'll be the 15th consecutive landing in a row of attempts. So some of them were expendable launches, we don't count those. 19th successful landing altogether. This is crazy. This is incredible. This is becoming oddly routine. So, so that being said, I really look forward to this. This is a brand new core today, so they are not reusing a core, and again, we actually have to specify that these days, because nowadays they're launching reused cores so often. They have landed, 19 now, or 24 they've landed, 19 they will land today, so that means they have a backlog of 18 of them sitting around somewhere. And they are starting to reuse them more and more frequently. NASA now has agreed to sign up to start using reused cores for their CRS missions. And we're going to see that already in December. We're going to see NASA using a reused SpaceX core. That shows how much confidence the industry has in reusability, which is freaking awesome for me, you, SpaceX, NASA, everybody. So this is great stuff. How is everybody today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. I have had a busy week. I've had a great weekend. Hello, everybody. So it's only the big reason they are not landing. Someone asked already in the live stream. The big reason, even though it's only 3,500 kilograms, the big reason they aren't landing on land, and the reason they're landing on the drone ship, is because this is a geostationary transfer orbit. So that means it has to put a lot more energy in that first stage, especially horizontal velocity. That first stage has to do more work. It ends up being too far away to be able to turn around and boost back. And I'll show you that today. In this live stream today, we're going to try and land. Well, we won't do it because, as much as I hate to admit it, I'm not as good as a computer at some things, I guess. We're going to try and replicate this in Kerbal Space Program using Realism Overhaul and a really nice model of the Falcon 9. I've got the numbers within literally like tens of meters per second. Hundreds of meters of altitude within seconds of the actual launch parameters, and we're going to show you kind of what that first stage does, and maybe if we have time later we'll do the second stage, but I don't even know how to get the second stage into geostationary transfer orbit, because again, I'm not actually a rocket scientist. But we'll give you a really good illustration during that break when SpaceX is coasting that 20-minute break. We're going to show you what that first stage is doing. It'll really help you understand why they can't just turn around and land on these missions, so it will be pretty fantastic. The launch is in about 25 minutes, so we're going to kind of listen in and wait for them to pull up their live stream, and when they do, we'll listen for SpaceX radio. But before we totally get started, I do want to say a few things. Number one, welcome. Sincerely, huge thank you for you guys for joining. This really means a lot. The community we've developed already is super awesome, and I want to just send a quick reminder. Please continue to be positive, friendly, informational. Help everyone else get as excited as we are. You know, that's the whole point of this. And I don't mean to sound like some kind of space evangelist here or anything, but this is rocket science we're trying to get people excited about. And you might be out there trying to figure out, why are people excited? So we're going to share that enthusiasm, and we're going to provide a positive community here. And you guys have done a phenomenal job of doing that. So thank you guys for doing that. That being said, I owe an even bigger thank you to my Patreon supporters. Those people, patreon.com/everydayastronaut. They're also in my Discord channel, which is awesome. We are working on scripting the next video right now, which I think we're actually going to finish up my beginner's guide to SpaceX finally, because people are asking about that. So then the other thing I need to mention is we now have sponsorships in YouTube here. If you want to do custom emojis, the custom emojis, which are currently just the one of me cheering with a guitar, you can become a sponsor here on YouTube if you're interested in supporting what we do here. So thank you guys for that. But total sidetrack here, guys. I do need to mention, I do need a favor from all of you, and it's not for me. It's from my friend Trevor Mallman. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Trevor Mallman. He's a very active person over on r/SpaceX. He's a fellow spaceflight photographer, so I normally shoot with spaceflight now. He shoots for, I can't remember who, but he's who taught me how to do International Space Station pictures. A very, very kind and generous young man, Trevor Mallman. He has the option of going off to the Soviet Union to watch a Soyuz launch and to photograph it. And he has a Kickstarter. He needs to raise $5,500 for his Kickstarter in order to be able to afford to go, because he has to pay for everything. I'm going to post that link to his thing real quick. And I would love it if you guys have a spare dollar or two, shoot it off to him. He needs to get all the stuff in already by, like, I think Friday's his deadline. And that's going to go by quickly. Let me see if I can pin it or something. Good luck. Try to catch it. I would definitely... Sorry, Soviet Union. He's going back in time, and that's why it's so expensive. I did say Soviet Union. You're right. It's called Russia, but actually it's Kazakhstan is where he'll be going, because that's where the launch is, out of the Baikonur Cosmodrome. He's going there. If you can't find him, if that link disappeared already, if it went by too quickly in the chat, check out, just search Soyuz rocket launch or rocket launch trip in GoFundMe.com. I'm going to post this one more time. This is important. He's an awesome guy. He helped me learn how to do ISS transit pictures. He did a thing with Smarter Every Day. He's the one that got the International Space Station transiting through the eclipse. Really cool guy. Help him out if you guys can. He's great. So there you go. Yeah. So let's get to answering some questions, guys. First off, yeah, I did see the new hold down clamps for the Falcon Heavy. I knew it. They are working on 39A in between every launch, and they are getting it more and more prepared. For those of you that don't know what we're talking about, SpaceX only currently has one launch pad on the East Coast, and it's called Launch Complex 39A, or Historic Launch Complex 39A, which is where most of the Saturn V launches happened, where a majority of the space shuttle launches happened from. So it is a very historic launch site, and that's SpaceX's only East Coast launch pad right now. That means that's their workhorse station. Previously, September 1st last year, they had a rocket blow up on the pad on their old launch complex, Slick 40. It's called SLC 40. And ever since then, they've been working on trying to rebuild that. And it's been more than a year, obviously, since we're beyond September 1st. So as soon as that goes online, they're going to continue. Hey, new sponsor. Thank you there. Timsticles TV. That's the greatest name ever. Hello, Timsticles. I really appreciate that. So the fun thing about this, though, is 40 is about to go back online. And I think we're going to see a launch here really soon come from 40. And that should be, let's see. It looks like CRS-13 will be from Slick 40, which is awesome. So that means SpaceX does need to... Hey, we have SpaceX radio finally. SpaceX does need to continue to repair or get Pad 39A, the current one, all ready for... my cat is going nuts right now. What a ridiculous animal. But so they are working on getting Pad 39A ready for Falcon Heavy. So that'll be a big thing. So, okay. This one is landing. They are landing. This is a geostationary transfer orbit launch. They will be landing on, of course, I Still Love You, which is about 400 kilometers-ish downrange. So yes, they are using a reuse booster to rechristen Slick 40, which is awesome. I'm really excited for that. So, yeah. School reports, they come after SpaceX, that's for sure. Yeah, so again, let me know, guys, if the audio levels are okay. I've kind of got SpaceX radio maybe too loud for now. Have I seen their secret robot? It's not too secret, but I have not seen it with my own eyes yet. But I have seen, obviously, pictures and video. It's called the Octo Grabber. It's this little, people were calling it the Roomba for a little while, but it internally has been called the Octo Grabber. It's this robot that parks in a garage on the drone ship. And when the rocket lands, it opens the doors and drives out, and then it grabs onto the stage, the just freshly landed stage, and holds it down, preventing it from sliding around on the deck. Because I don't know if you guys saw that video they made. I don't know if you saw that video they made, but they made a video called like blowing up rockets or something. I don't remember how not to land a rocket. And they showed one of the stages almost tipping over off the deck. So when you have a $30 million piece of hardware, you kind of want to hold on to it. So I turned down SpaceX. Let me know if it's better now. Octograbber got damaged recently. Question mark. You know, I don't remember. I feel like I had a bad dream that it got damaged. Did it actually get damaged? I don't remember. I do not remember. This is a fresh booster, a brand new booster. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but yeah, it's so this is going to be the first flight of this. I believe this is Core 41. So am I correct? Or 42, Core 42. And yeah, and then so it's, yeah, we'll see. Eventually they'll be almost exclusively using reused cores, especially as the industry, especially now that NASA is signing off on reused cores. That's extremely exciting. Just remember that it was only end of March that they launched the first reused core. And since then, I think we've had 3 or maybe 4 reused cores. I think 3 for sure. And now we already have NASA willing to bet their expensive payloads for the internet, destined to the International Space Station. They have confidence in it. So that's really, really exciting stuff. So yeah, I'm super stoked on this. Yeah, so it's fantastic. So when is it going to start? The launch is scheduled for 2:35 my time, 3:35 Eastern, which is like, let's see. Let's find out. 1934 UTC. So there we go. There we go. Now you know. Is it worth it to launch just one satellite with weight only 3,500? Yes. The customer pays for this, period. And oftentimes there aren't multiple satellites. So Orion, the Orion 5 is one of the few rockets that actually will launch multiple satellites. And it's quite a juggling act to be able to figure out, you know, who's going where and what. The 2,200 kilograms, 22,000 kilograms listed there. That's like absolute maximum expendable. I don't think they've ever launched anything near that heavy. And that would be for low Earth orbit only. When you have to send something out to geostationary orbit, it takes a huge payload penalty, probably almost half or a third that capability. So, yeah, so SpaceX is still too loud. Does anybody else feel like that? Let me see if it's, yeah, I've got it pretty mixed down here, but confirm maybe that you don't have a separate window open or something yourself, because I've got it pretty low here. So, Martin asks why they use aluminum grid fins instead of titanium. So, okay, so the way I understand it, first off, aluminum is cheaper, period, by a significant margin. And they aren't always necessary. And I don't honestly know for sure. Maybe they have a stockpile of aluminum, maybe of the aluminum grid fins. Maybe they don't. I don't actually know the exact reason. But the biggest reason I heard from a source was it's cheaper. So, but yet it's less reusable than titanium. Titanium seems to hold off better. We've only seen titanium like once or twice, right? So, you know, I don't really know what to say there. You know. Why don't they use air brakes? Because the atmosphere already is braking it a lot. You'll see that when we try to do this in Kerbal Space Program. You'll see how much the atmosphere slows down the first stage. And here we go. The live stream is pulling up. I'm going to switch to big mode here. As soon as it actually goes live, I'm going to start going quiet so you guys can still listen in. And then I'll reiterate things and answer questions that they talk about for you guys. So get ready to listen in as soon as the host comes on. For now, it's just kind of music. But I'm going to make sure that we still have the option of hearing what they're saying. And then I'll answer your guys' questions. So stay tuned here. Here we go.
It's October 30th, 2017 at 3:24 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, our 1920 Universal Coordinate Time, and you are looking at a live view of a Falcon 9 rocket as it awaits liftoff from the SpaceX launch pad approximately 10 minutes from now. Welcome to today's live webcast of the KoreaSat 5A mission from Launch Pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. My name is John Fetterspiel, and I'm a lead mechanical design engineer here at SpaceX. And today, we will be delivering the KoreaSat 5A satellite to a geostationary transfer orbit, also known as GTO. Now, as with our previous GTO flights, we will also be attempting to recover our first stage via our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, currently stationed in the Atlantic Ocean about 340 nautical miles downrange of the launch pad. Now, we did have some rough seas due to a tropical storm that passed by the Bahamas in the earlier, but the drone ship is now on station and looking good for recovery. If successful, today's landing would mark our 19th overall successful landing.
Someone says John looks sick. I think he just looks handsome as always. What a gentleman. He looks like Superman. He really, really could be. He could be Superman. Here's the deal, guys. Yeah, these. Sorry. Oh.
SpaceX is 12 from Launch Complex 39A and 16th launch overall this year. On your screen, you're seeing some footage of the SpaceX hangar located at the base of our launch pad. This hangar can house both Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. And in fact, our launch today for Falcon 9 was prepared right next to the 3 boosters currently in the hangar for Falcon Heavy, which we're targeting to launch by the end of this year.
The end of this year.
KoreaSat 5A was mated to Falcon 9 last Friday and rolled out to the pad and raised vertical about 24 hours ago. This operation was done while the vehicle was supported by the strong...
Oh. Was that me or you guys? Did everybody have this? Uh-oh. Let's see if that's just me or if that's you guys, or if that's like them on their end. Let's just refresh this here real quick. And we'll see. It still just says stream offline. Uh-oh. Okay, so we'll just wait for them, guys. Hey, luckily we're still here, though, so... Things to note. Oh, there we go.
This operation was done while the vehicle was supported by the strong back. That's actually what will separate, and the first stage itself will come back and land on the drone ship once it basically gets us out of most of Earth's atmosphere. The second stage, that's what actually is going to be doing the precision orbital maneuver. It uses a single Merlin engine optimized for the vacuum of space to place KoreaSat 5A into the geostationary transfer orbit. KoreaSat 5A is housed inside our fairing at the forward end of the stage. That's the area that's a little bit of a larger diameter and has that KTSat logo on the outside. About 3 minutes and 39 seconds into today's flight, we'll be separating that fairing, and it will fall back to the Atlantic Ocean as well.
Although they are working on recovering those fairings. Okay, people are saying I need to refresh. I will do that. Apparently we've got a little delay going. Did that help at all? Yes, they are working on recovering the fairings. They have RCS thrusters inside each. The fairing splits in half, and then they orient them to kind of land or re-enter, kind of using that broad surface.
T-minus 9 minutes into today's mission. Right now, all systems are go, tracking no issues at the moment. We began loading propellants at the T-minus 78-minute mark. Right now, we have finished loading RP1. That's our fuel for today's mission. We finished loading it on the second stage. We're going to top off RP1 on the first stage up until the T-minus 5-minute mark. We are currently loading liquid oxygen and sitting nearly full on both our first and second stages. And we'll continue loading liquid oxygen onto those both stages up until the T-minus 3-minute mark. We try and hold that to as late as possible because we cryogenically cool the liquid oxygen down to about negative 340 degrees Fahrenheit. And then we load it onto the stage so it's as dense as possible so we can get as much propellant onto the stages and give ourselves as much margin for the mission. Coming up at this moment, it's about T-minus 8 minutes. We did check out our spacecraft. KoreaSat. They transitioned to internal power about T-minus 20 minutes. They've given us a go for today's mission, tracking no issues. We are also launching from Kennedy Space Center. So we are working with Kennedy Space Center team as well as the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. They have cleared the area and secured it around Launch Pad 39A. They've also cleared the corridor leading out of the pad downrange and given us a go for today's mission. Looking at the weather, it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful blue sky, 65 degrees and sunny at Cape Canaveral, tracking no issues at the moment for weather. So with all stations indicating go for launch, let's take a little closer look at today's payload.
We'll listen in here and see if they actually say anything. It might just be like a cool video. And if it is, then I'll start answering some questions for you guys.
KoreaSat 5A is a communications satellite operated by KT-SAT. That's South Korea's sole satellite service provider. The satellite was manufactured by Thales Alenia Space and located at 113 degrees east longitude. KoreaSat 5A will provide direct-to-home broadcast, broadband, and backhaul services with its Ku band capacity. KoreaSat 5A provides KT-SAT with 12 Ku band transponders of 36 MHz and 24 Ku band transponders of 54 MHz. Now, as a replacement for KoreaSat 5, KoreaSat 5A will expand upon its coverage across Asia and the Middle East. And unlike other satellites in the KoreaSat fleet, KoreaSat 5A will provide maritime coverage of the Persian Gulf, Indian Ocean, South China Sea, and East China Sea. KoreaSat 5A is also equipped with 4 extended Ku band steerable transponders of 54 MHz each. These steerable transponders will provide commercial direct-to-home broadcasting services in the North Asia region by the end of this year. The KoreaSat 5A satellite arrived at SpaceX facilities in early October and has been undergoing preparations for its launch today. It weighs about 3,700 kilograms at launch and offers payload power of approximately 6.5 kilowatts. You're seeing that satellite getting loaded into its shipping fixture on the screen right now. That was brought into an airplane, shipped to Cape Canaveral, and arrived at the SpaceX facilities just in that transport crate you see right there. Now, Thales Alenia Space is the prime contractor for KoreaSat 5A, in charge of its design, production, and testing, as well as the ground delivery. The company is also responsible for its launch campaign, the launch and early operations phase, and in-orbit testing of KoreaSat 5A. Now, today we are taking KoreaSat 5A to a geostationary transfer orbit. And on your screen, we have a quick animation. You can see the launch with first stage landing. That second stage has its first burn. After that burn, we have a fairing separation during it. We will coast for about 20 minutes. Then we're going to have a second stage, second burn, about T plus 35 minutes and 30 seconds. We're going to have our payload deploy. Then KoreaSat 5A will use its own onboard thrusters, put it in a final geostationary orbit at about 36,000 kilometers away from Earth. You can see it's matching Earth's rotation. That's how it actually covers a singular spot of Earth's sky, and in this region instance, that 113 degrees east longitude position. So we're about T-minus 4 minutes and 20 seconds in today's mission. As of right now, we're finishing up that LOX load on the first stage. No issues to report right now. The forward arms of the strongback have begun opening up. Everything there is looking good to report. It will fully recline at liftoff. At T-minus 7 minutes, we began the engine chill process of our first stages. That's where we actually are flowing in that liquid oxygen into the first stage engines. That kind of chills down all of the metal components of the Merlin engines, and so that way they don't actually flash into gaseous oxygen at liftoff. It protects the engines and gets it ready for the actual ignition point. Coming up at the T-minus 1 minute mark, Falcon 9 is going to enter into startup. That's actually the moment where our ground computers are going to hand over the countdown process to Falcon 9. The onboard flight computer of Falcon 9 will take over the countdown at that point. It'll do its final checkouts of all the sensors, which will lead us up into liftoff at T-minus 0 mark. So, recapping where we're at right now, our payload is on an internal power, giving us go for today's launch. Our fairing boat is, our drone ship is out in the sea, 340 nautical miles. Go for today's launch. Our rocket, Falcon 9, go for today's launch, topping off liquid oxygen right now. Weather's looking good, range is good. So at about T-minus 3 minutes, let's listen into these final few minutes of the countdown process.
Okay, so we have a few things to address. First off, he did say fairing boat, and we know there's actually a separate boat out there as they work on trying to recover the fairings. The fairing ship, or the fairings, again, do cost about $5 to $6 million.
Confirmed TVC is nominal.
I'm just kind of listening in here.
H2 TVC motion's nominal.
Those fairings are huge and mostly carbon fiber. They're crazy expensive. They're not just some dumb thing. They're really, really big. I mean, that's almost the size of like a house, basically. A full-size school bus can fit inside that fairing. So it's hard to wrap your head around how massive. Think about how expensive carbon fiber is. Now make it huge, and that's what they're doing. So
Stage 2 locks is closed out for flight.
they're huge. The other thing I want to address is that Slick 40, the other launch pad, will be going online here really shortly. The first launch is scheduled for CRS 13, which is early December. So that's awesome. I can't wait for that. I also do want to make sure I mention, again, just the overall conversation I want to have here in our live chat.
Vehicles and self-line.
These rockets, this is a serious thing.
Gas closed at the start.
There's a lot of people's careers, lives, livelihood at risk. Not necessarily lives. Personnel are far away, but don't ever cheer for an explosion. My friends at SpaceX, when they have anomalies, it affects them big time. Imagine the stress that happens when you lose not only a $60 million rocket, but also a $200 or $300, $400, $500 million satellite. It's not a good day.
Ready for launch.
So we like to keep it positive here, guys. We want to cheer these people on. We want to cheer on anyone in the industry. So not only SpaceX, everyone else. Let's just keep it positive, guys. Let's cheer them on. We're getting ready. We're less than T-minus 1 minute. Yes,
Stage 2 for flight.
I'm ready for this.
LD on countdown 1. We're go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Stage 1 pressing for flight.
T-minus 15 seconds. Stand by for terminal count. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Yeah, baby.
Vehicle switching downrange.
Whew, she's cruising already. That's so crazy. Shaking the
Precision
camera on the
propulsion's
VAB. That's 3.5 miles away. It's shaking that camera. I'm talking about a lot of power here, people. Cammy, thank you.
Power
I
telemetry
didn't do
nominal.
anything.
T plus 50 seconds in today's mission. We are on our way to delivering KoreaSat 5A to a geostationary transfer orbit. Watching the 9 Merlin engines of the Falcon 9 first stage,
Falcon 9 is
capable of
supersonic.
putting out over 1.7 million pounds of thrust. About 5 seconds ago, we transitioned to the supersonic regime. Coming up in about a second, we're going to hit
Vehicle
max Q.
experiencing maximum dynamic pressure.
We actually just passed through max Q. That's one of the highest stress states on the vehicle.
It's always good when they get through max Q.
Propulsion avionics continues to look nominal.
MVAC engine chill has begun.
You heard the call out. The Merlin vacuum engine of our second stage has begun chilling in. Same process as the first stage, where we start to flow that liquid oxygen through that second stage engine. This first stage burn will last for about another 30
Recovery bird
seconds.
has AOS.
Okay, coming up
In
on.
about 10 seconds, we'll have main engine cutoff. All 9 Merlin engines at that first stage will shut down. About 3 seconds after that, we will see stage separation, where the first and second stages will be separated by 4 pneumatic actuators, and then we will have the ignition of our second stage engine. Let's watch.
William, you go.
Stage separation confirmed.
Go. Looks good. That first stage, interstage takes a little beating there.
And we have a good ignition of the Merlin vacuum engine of our second stage. You can see the exhaust plumes coming from the forward view of our first stage on the left screen camera. Our grid fins have also deployed, as you can see there. We use those grid fins to guide ourselves back through Earth's
This
atmosphere
is Florida
to our
here,
drone ship.
people.
Of course, I
if you
still
want a
love you.
reference.
In about 15 seconds, we'll have separation of the fairing from our second stage.
Here we go. Fairing
That's a view
separation.
inside the fairing. KoreaSat 5A on the right side.
Fairing
And we have
separation
separation of the fairing. It's a good separation.
That's always good.
Second stage is following a nominal trajectory.
And we have a call out that second stage is following a nominal trajectory right now. Everything looking good.
I noticed the telemetry up here on the screen is
Meanwhile,
following the first
stage is
stage.
continuing to guide itself down. We're coming up on entry burn at about the 6
Acquisition
minutes and
signal
23
data.
seconds for the entry burn.
These are aluminum grid fins, everybody. We haven't seen them use titanium much lately.
Now, in addition to using those grid fins for guiding ourselves back to the ship, we do have cold nitrogen thrusters. That's those white puffs of smoke you see coming on the screen on the first stage image. We also use that to help orient the stage back to the drone ship. Our second stage burn is going to last till about T plus 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Then that second stage engine will shut down. We'll be coasting for about 20 minutes. And then we will have our second burn to put KoreaSat 5A into the final geostationary transfer orbit.
Yes, they are trying to recover these fairings. Fire-powered radio. They're
Entry burn
working on
coming
it,
up in
but
about
it's
a
actually
minute.
really
for the
expensive.
Stage one. It passed through its apogee of about 110 kilometers. So now we are accelerating back to Earth. We use that entry burn to negate a lot of the vertical velocity that the rocket is built up and help slow down the entry speeds. See a more gentler touchdown. Entry burn will be about a 20-second entry burn. We're using a combination of 1 and 3 engines, depending on different timing and sequences of this burn. Today, there is only 2 burns since we are landing on the drone ship. We're not going back to Cape Canaveral. So we just have the entry burn followed by the landing burn at about 8 minutes and 6 seconds.
Drone ship AOS.
Acquisition of signal for the drone
Stage 1,
ship.
AFTS has saved.
Stage 1 entry burn has started.
Confirmation of entry burn start. 20-second burn.
Stage 2 continues to follow a nominal trajectory.
Manned mission should hopefully be by the end of the year, to answer your question.
Stage 1 entry burn is shut down.
And we have shutdown of the entry burn.
Look at all that carbon from the exhaust. You see the grid fins are
We'll have our
glowing
landing burn
already.
in just about a minute of stage 1. Single engine landing burn.
This is pretty normal. But it's okay. Hopefully they'll show us the drone ship camera here in about 20 seconds. We'll hear the
We may
callouts. Listen
lose
to the
signal, as you
callouts.
saw there briefly with stage 1. We are getting the feed from a satellite in the drone ship. With that tropical storm moving through the area, there were some choppier seas, which makes our satellite link a little bit more challenging. But we will provide you guys updates as we have them. Meanwhile, you're looking at a live view of
Stage
stage
1
2.
is transonic.
Stage 1's transonic, so it's now
Call out
below
for
the speed of
stage
sound.
1, passing through transonic regime just came. Trajectory continues to look good for this second burn, or first burn of the second stage, which will have cutoff at about 8 minutes and 30 seconds.
Stage 1 landing burn is started.
The landing burn for stage 1 has begun.
Okay. Here we go.
A 30-second landing burn.
We'll see if they can hold signal. Look at how shaky it is, and the plasma from the rocket oftentimes interferes with the link,
Live
the
view
satellite
from,
link.
Of course, I Still Love You, our drone ship out in the Atlantic Ocean.
Shaking now already. Look at that.
And we have signal.
Oh, it's there.
We do have confirmation while we're waiting for an image from the drone ship that we did have our second stage engine cutoff.
Second stage cutoff is good.
But if you've tuned into past and webcasts, you've noticed that we have lost feeds in the past of our stage 1.
no.
Right now, we don't exactly know the state of stage 1.
This is longer than
But
normal.
as of this moment,
Did they lose their streak?
It does look like we are in a good parking orbit for stage 2.
This is recovery. Stage 1 is landed. Recovery operators moving to section 1.
And we have confirmation from recovery operators that stage 1 has landed. Stage 1 has landed. We don't have any images and footage to share with you. Oh, there's the
Yes.
image right now.
Oh, it's massively on fire. Spray it down. Spray it with that hose.
A little toasty, but stage 1 is certainly still intact on the drone ship.
No.
Second stage is in a
way.
good parking orbit right now. So what we're actually going to do is leave you this animation of stage 2, so that way you can keep tracking its
leave
progress.
us.
At about T
Don't
plus 26
show us.
minutes, we'll be back to cover the second burn of our second stage and put it into a geostationary transfer orbit. So we'll be pausing right now, and we'll see you back here at T plus 26 minutes.
Show us this. No. Don't do this to us. Are you serious? You can't leave us with a rocket on fire on the drone ship. Holy crap. But everything, they did cheer. Everyone was cheering. Again, all of a sudden, they do have literally fire hoses on there. So hopefully they sprayed it down and got rid of the fire. But gosh. Yeah. Okay. So guys, here's what we're going to do. First off, Cammy, thank you for the tip. Sincerely, that genuinely means a lot. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to answer a few questions. We have quite a bit of time here as they coast. I'm going to redo that exact same thing in Kerbal Space Program using Realism Overhaul and a really realistic Falcon 9. We're even going to reach almost the exact same altitudes, exact same speeds, exact same everything. I've got it pretty close. You'll see how hard it is when you see a human try and do it. Even, I mean, I'm no computer, but yeah, we're not even going to be close. But I'm going to answer a couple of your guys' questions real quick. I'm going to take a really, really quick break while I'm going to, pee, and then get Kerbal all ready for you guys. And then we're going to do this in Kerbal Space Program, and then hopefully we'll bring up the live stream back again before it's, all over. So, the first thing I wanted to answer, hey, first off, guys, everyone cheers to SpaceX. Another successful first stage landing, making it 19th overall. So, huzzah! Yes, that was fantastic. A bio break. Second off, a big thank you to all of you people. You guys are awesome. This is so fun to see this many people here to communicate with and to answer questions and hang out with. So, 19th altogether, guys. They're killing it. SpaceX, you guys are awesome. The number one question I was seeing is Falcon Heavy. People asking, when do you think Falcon Heavy? They mentioned in the video. As far as I know, I continually hear them actually saying they're pushing for this year's flight. I haven't heard, and this is the closest we've gotten. We're coming in really darn close to less than 2 months remaining of the year. We're like basically exactly 2 months out from the end of the year. So 2018 is the year 2017 is the year we might see the Falcon Heavy fly. We know all 3 cores are in the hangar. We know that Slick 40 is going online here at the beginning of December. I think the first launch from the old launch pad, Slick 40, will be December 4th, of course, the day before I go to Florida. Great. And I might still go down early, I guess, now. But so yes, that's CRS 13. And then they do need some time. They've been working on the pad in between these launches, and I think LC 39, the launch pad that they just launched from, is a lot further along in Falcon heaviness than we all think. As a matter of fact, they have the hold down clamps installed on the transporter vector. Things are pretty far along, so yeah. So hopefully we're good to go by the end of the year. I think for sure, I do think we'll see a static fire of it by the end of the year. And once they do the static fire, I do expect a couple days for them to comb over all the data, make sure everything looks good. But yes, I am very excited for that. So I'm going to take a really quick break. Don't go anywhere, because we're going to replicate this in Kerbal Space Program during the break while SpaceX is coasting, and we'll show you what they're doing during that period and all that stuff. I'm just going to, it'll be like 5 seconds. So I'll be right back with Kerbal Space Program ready to go. Don't go anywhere. Be right back. I think we all dreamt about going to space when we were kids. But when the space shuttle program ended in 2011, I discovered a void in my life. That emptiness led to a newfound obsession with space. A few years later, I wound up bidding on a Russian spacesuit as a joke. When the box arrived at my doorstep, my friends asked, "What are you going to do with a spacesuit?" The answer? What can't I do with a spacesuit? That's how Everyday Astronaut was born. Since then, the suit hasn't left my side. It's even gone around the world with me. From remote villages in Myanmar, rockets and spaceships, to beautiful fields in Norway. I'm fighting a cow to get a picture right now.
Here I am on vacation in the beautiful Norway with my beautiful boyfriend.
I even proposed to my wife in the suit at Machu Picchu in Peru. These days I work with leaders in the space industry to create fun and inspirational content. I've even been invited to different NASA facilities across the country, all for the sake of sharing my excitement with the world.
Hey there, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware, but NASA is doing some incredible things. This is church for us space nerds.
This is where Gene Kranz was sitting when people first learned about him. This is with permission. I still don't know how. I love that I'm standing on something that says urine bags. This thing's gonna fly like a cat and eat. Whatever that means. That dog's gonna have a sore throat by the end of the day, I'll tell you that. Especially once he tries to explain to his friends that he just saw an astronaut flying majestically. Okay, here we are. So check this out. So I have here loaded up a Falcon 9 rocket with approximately the same-ish payload-ish. We have a drone ship situated out in the ocean. We're going to set this as the target. We're only going to worry about the first stage for now. But I'm going to teach you guys how this actually works. So, ooh, cool underground view. It's neato. I like that. So we are going to use MechJeb to make sure we eliminate the variable of me trying to fly this thing perfectly. Obviously, we can get this thing to orbit manually. But more importantly, we're trying to actually get this first stage as close to the drone ship as we can. And you'll see all the data involved in this. It's pretty crazy. So engage autopilot. 3, 2, 1. We're going to ignite the engines manually. And then again, once they have fire start up. 3, 2, 1. Hip, hip. And we have liftoff. Now, my computer will run a little bit slower here since we're running like 5 things at once. And yeah, this is how it does this roll that I can't seem to get rid of, even though I have the roll off. Anyway, I still have to manually do a lot of things, so there's still a large variety that I could ruin this flight by a lot of ways. But check it out. This is actually pretty accurate as to how this all works. So the vehicle mostly goes vertical at first, and then it starts to pitch over. Neuropilot, I could stick this thing in GitHub for the config files. The only problem is that this thing has a ton of mods, so if you don't have all the right mods, it won't load up properly. I just built this mostly using what's that called? Where you that thing, you know, config parts or something. I don't remember what it's called, but I'm totally blanking. So here's what's happening. So check out the landing. This is showing us approximately where we'd land if we were to totally cut the throttle right now. And notice that this is getting further and further away, just like throwing a ball in the air. The harder you throw it, but this is continually accelerating. So it doesn't just have that initial moment of inertia like a gun or a ball. But here we go. You can see that this is actually starting to get closer and closer. Our apoapsis, our highest point, is getting higher and higher. So our arc is getting further out, and that's actually how you get things into orbit. You make that arc so big that it actually eventually encompasses the entire globe, the entire Earth. Now you can see the vehicle's pitching over. So it's going more and more sideways. This is called the gravity turn. So it starts off by going up, and the only reason you really need to get up on Earth is, besides procreating, is you need to get up in order to get out of the atmosphere. And then the only reason you stay in space is because there's no friction from the atmosphere. The friction from the atmosphere is what would slow you down otherwise, but the big thing is you have to be going fast enough sideways, horizontally. The magic number is 17,500 miles an hour, and that's like 27,000 kilometers an hour. Hey, thank you so much, Device 1, and also Maxwell Bowie. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate the purchase of a adult beverage. That's fantastic. Thank you. So here we go. So the vehicle is still continuing to accelerate. It will hold this attitude. Notice at our highest point here, 39,000, 40,000 meters. That has to get up to around 100. The engine, or the first stage, will only end up coasting up to about 110 kilometers for its apoapsis, its highest point. So pretty sweet. 7,500 kilometers an hour, not miles per hour. 7,900 kilometers per second, 17,500 miles an hour, 27,000 kilometers an hour-ish. I don't know exactly. Yeah. Did SpaceX ever think about returning the second stage by docking it with the first stage and reusing it for deaccelerating? You'll see why that's impossible. The first stage only gets 1/4 of the acceleration out of the way. We're already almost out of fuel in this first stage, so the first stage will fall back to Earth, while the second stage has to continue and inject 4 times more velocity than the first stage. So I have to pay a little bit of attention here. I have to disengage this autopilot when we reach 2,200 meters per second, just after 2,200, 2,211 or so would be fantastic. Then the first stage is almost out of fuel, and it only has enough fuel to do what most people thought was an impossible landing, and now we're finding out that they've really found out how to do that perfectly. But the second stage will be long gone by the time. Oh, I got to pay attention here. Will be long gone and far, far, far away from the first stage, and I'll show you that here in a second. 3, 2, 1. Okay, that's booster first stage cutoff, Miko. Now, like I said, I'm just gonna fire up this stage just to get it out of here. But this is what happens. The first stage now is coasting, and it's going to fall back to Earth. The second stage here reignites, just like in real life. I'm going to do a quick save just in case something happens. And then notice that there's still that protective fairing, because we are still in a little bit of atmosphere. And they're going to be jettisoning that fairing here shortly. And now notice on the map here, the first stage is just going to be falling and landing right here approximately right now. The second stage is continuing to speed up. Therefore, its arc will get further and further away. Its apoapsis higher, its arc further and further out. And eventually, that arc will go all the way down and around the Earth. Hey, thank you, Jared, and also Deignator. Thank you so much. Where will I be watching the Falcon Heavy from? Hopefully, I will be with some member of credentialed media, maybe with Spaceflight Now or some other space agency, a news agency. So hopefully, I'll be watching it from the press site. I can't wait. I cannot freaking wait. So. No, see, Harak, you're right. There's a 5-to-1 ratio, but don't forget the first stage has to push the second stage up. There is a 4-to-1, so we're just going to leave it like this, and we're going to worry about that first stage now. So those fairings, you guys were asking about those fairings. How do they make it back to Earth? They orient themselves using RCS thrusters, small RCS thrusters. Hey, thank you for the new sponsors and for that. For you, Trizzy Pole. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, seriously. Now, this first stage is just going to be coasting up at this point and then falling back down. Its highest point will be 114,000 meters or 114 kilometers. And let's go ahead and deploy those grid fins and do this flip. Now, like I said, remember that I'm not planning to be able to land this. If we get anywhere close to the drone ship, it's an absolute win. Maybe I'll get better and better at this, and hopefully someday we'll have something to look forward to in live streams. We can watch me try to get better and better at this. So it's Russian without vowels. Awesome. Well, thank you. Sorry, I'm trying to keep up with you guys. Oh, procedural parts. Yeah, that is exactly what I meant. So we're going to turn off, we're going to go down to 3 engines, because right now all 9 are lit for ignition. We're going to cut it down to 3, because they only use 3 engines to do their reentry burn. But now the first stage is getting it up to its highest point. You can see right here, we're about to pass in 3, 2, 1. And now the stage, look at this gauge right here, it'll be falling. And there it goes. We are now falling back to Earth officially. Before we were actually coasting upwards. So now the stage is beginning to re-enter. And notice how far away we are from our launch site. Our launch site's way back here. I also need to turn this stuff off. I found out that was messing me up. So also, thank you, Polytube. Thank you so much for your tip. That really means a lot. $6 will buy me a nice beer. Thank you. I might have to get back to this. Is SpaceX back? That was weird. Kind of made it sound like we're doing something official here. Let's see. Do I own a Tesla? Not yet. Hopefully someday. Model 3 reservation owner, but not a S or an X or anything else yet. Somebody asked me a pretty good question. Procedural parts. Yeah, so back to that. The first stage. Yeah, so the first stage has to push the second stage and put all that velocity into the second stage and the payload. So it's basically out of fuel. Look at how low the fuel gauges are. They can't just keep modifying the first stage to match up to the second stage. The big difference is velocities. So, yeah. So, obviously, I let the second stage cut off here, but that is where the second stage is in real life. Or in real life, it'd be continuing to burn and it'd be getting itself into orbit. Like I said, it'll end up going 4 times faster than the first stage. So here we go. Once this gets down to about 65 meters, or 65,000 meters, we're going to do our reentry burn so that the air or the atmosphere doesn't rip the stage apart, because we're going so fast. You see it catch on fire. That's what happens, and that's with them slowing down already beforehand. So it has to slow down a little bit before it gets to that point in the atmosphere where the atmosphere would rip it apart. So that's the biggest reason why they can't use parachutes. And I need to make a new video about why they can't use parachutes, because parachutes can't slow you before there's air, before the air comes, because parachutes don't operate in a vacuum. And we'll put a little pause on this.
If you're just joining us, we had a successful
1 second here.
First burn. We have a live view of our first stage there on our drone ship. You saw it a little bit toasty earlier with some fires. Those fires are out. Our team is taking control of it. First stage is looking good, right on point in the center of Course I Still Love You in the Mid-Atlantic Ocean.
Did they lose their feed again? Don't tell me they lost their... Did I lose their feed?
If you look back at our primary mission today, second stage is coming up on its next burn. That will start in about 10 seconds. That's a live view from the aft end, looking at our Merlin vacuum engine of the second stage. We're right now sitting in a good low Earth parking orbit. In about 2 seconds, you'll see ignition, and there it is. Ignition of our Merlin vacuum engine. This
Great. Maybe it's because I'm trying to run Kerbal at the same time.
will be about a 1-minute burn.
Oh, wasn't me.
That burn will take us into a higher apogee. This is what it's basically doing. It's raising the apogee of second stage, getting ready to deploy KoreaSat 5A into that geostationary transfer orbit. This burn, like I said, so far looks good. We will be executing this.
Is that me or them, guys? That might be me, guys. I'm sorry about that. Let's push this out. Sorry about that. You'd think gigabit internet would be fast enough, wouldn't you? So they're just working on
Engine
accelerating
looks good.
now. There we go.
Throttling down, and we have shutdown.
Looks good.
And that looks like we are in a good geostationary transfer.
Snowflakes is solid oxygen being vented out, and it just gathers. And yeah, solid chunks of oxygen ice. So, hey, thank you, Joe. Thank you. It helps.
Orbit.
Why is
We
it
have payload
pausing
deployment
for me?
coming up at about 35 minutes and 30
we're a few
seconds
seconds
today's
behind.
mission. So we're actually going to pause again, leave you with another animation of where our Stage 2 and KoreaSat 5A are positioned over Earth. We'll be back about T plus
Good orbit.
35 minutes. Our GNC callout just confirmed that we are in a good orbit insertion for the payload. So we'll be back at T plus 35 minutes with payload deployment.
Okay, so we have 7 more minutes to work on landing our first stage here. But I will answer a few questions for you guys. Actually, I'll keep this up for just a few seconds. So let me answer a few of those questions. It does look like snow. That's literally it's iceous oxygen. So it's solid oxygen. Remember, those tanks are pressurized, very, very, very cold liquid oxygen. And as it vents out, it turns into a gas, and it develops an ice out in space. So it goes straight, I believe it goes straight into a solid. So you see chunks of oxygen at those vent ports. So yeah. Why is the first stage cut off like always? Is it plasma from the engines? Yes, that's exactly correct. So the drone ship's so far away that it's actually, and this will happen to us in Kerbal Space Program as well, it's actually so far away that there's no direct link between the drone ship and back at Kennedy Space Center. So they have to do a satellite relay because the curve of the Earth, sorry, flat earthers, prevents the drone ship from actually communicating back with Kennedy Space Center, or with any land even for that matter. So they do have to do a full relay of it. I don't get why this keeps pausing. I think it's kind of on my end, guys. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to turn them down too a little bit. So the fairing, we have not. So okay, so that's what happens, and the plasma from the engines as they reignite and come down to land end up shaking the satellite around quite a bit. So, yep, that's what happens. I will go ahead and reload this page for you guys and for me, since it's being cabbage. So now we're going to go ahead and recover the fairings. Yes, so the fairings, they pop out, and notice that they're very hollow, they're very lightweight. They are not nearly the same as recovering a first stage. So that being said, they mainly just need to orient themselves using RCS thrusters, and as they fall back to Earth, they just keep it so they can kind of glide and stay on the concave shape. Yeah, that's the main. So once they get down low enough into the atmosphere, they can survive skimming on the atmosphere because there's a lot less mass behind them, and a lot more surface area. I'm just going to turn this down to 720 for now. Hopefully that'll help with latency issues. And then once they get down into the deep atmosphere, they actually have their own parafoil parachutes that steer them, and they're eventually going to try to land it on like a giant bouncy castle type of thing. So yeah, pretty exciting stuff. Let's go ahead and finish this up because maybe that'll help us do our live stream better. So at 65,000 meters, I do need to do the reentry burn here. Let's get that ready here. Here we go. And 3, 2, 1, reignition. And now watch as I purposely went beyond our target by almost 20 kilometers. We need to bring this down to about 4. And it looks like we might be a little bit north. I don't know why that renders so poorly. No, we're dead on. So that's our target down there, guys. Look at how far away it is right now. And down to about, what did I say, 3-ish? I don't know. We're just going to wing it. Again, I'm not a computer, unfortunately. And 3 kilometers away. We're going to overshoot it a little bit on purpose. And we are going to have to do a 3-engine landing burn because for whatever reason, I always get a communications cutout. Sorry about that. Oh, I'm not full screen. Sorry, you're right. There we go. So, now you can see that we are closing in on this drone ship. We're currently going to overshoot it by about 3 kilometers. But the atmosphere will slow us down a lot as we go do that re-entry. So, here it goes. It's starting to get spicy. And this is about when we lose connection from SpaceX. But luckily for us, we can actually watch this. So that plasma, again, knocks off the video feed from the first stage. So we cannot watch it live. So somebody asked how do they know it's not going to land on a boat or a whale? There is range safety. So they actually won't launch if a boat goes into anywhere within the trajectory of the rocket. We need to get ready to fire up these engines. Guys, if I happen to land this, I will absolutely crap my pants. So I'm just going to let it hold retrograde for now. I'm just barely going to light up those engines, even though it's kind of early. So I can throttle them, because they do need to spool up a little bit here. But you can see the drone ship getting closer and closer for us. Looks like I definitely did that ignition too early. But this will give you a good sense of what's going on here. Guys, this is the closest I've ever been. Oh my word. I think I need to drift that way, though. Just a little bit. And remember, again, unfortunately, I don't have another reignition. You cannot reignite and realism overhaul. So I just plain and simple throttled too early. But we're probably going to see this render here shortly. We're going to be a full kilometer off now. Whoops. And we're almost out of fuel because I throttled way too early. We can't cut the engines. We don't have a connection. And this is going to be the end. I throttled way too early. And goodbye. But let's see if we can get close enough where it renders the drone ship again. I don't actually have control anymore. So that's why this is an extra big crapshoot. But you get a sense at least of how far along... Here, let's see. Wait until this renders. I can't drop legs. I can't do anything. And the legs don't even drop until the very, very last second.
T plus 35 minutes into today's mission.
We're what? Why? Why is there 3 pixels? Is that for you guys too? Or is that just me? I did not quick save. We might have to quit, hello? We might have to quit Kerbal if it's going to be this glitchy. Okay, it looks like it's, maybe going to come back online? Boy, this is crazy. This is crazy. There we go.
Albeit a little toasty, but it's certainly intact and ready for another flight on our drone ship. Of course, I still love you. We also had a successful deployment of KoreaSat 5A to a geostationary transfer orbit. So with that, we're going to conclude our webcast. We would like to thank our customer, KTSat, for today's mission. We'd like to thank the United States Air Force for supporting today's mission from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Range, as well as the FAA for their support. And most importantly, we'd like to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in for today's mission. Please keep apprised of updates on our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We have A few more missions coming up this year.
Okay.
And if you'd like to
Oh,
come
yeah.
up here and join the team that makes all this happen, check out SpaceX.com/careers. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Okay, that does it for them. We're gonna go ahead and bounce back to Kerbal quick, but first answer questions. So the deploy, I think they dropped their signal before the deploy, unfortunately. So it wasn't actually our fault, I think. Yeah. So I don't think it was me. People are also reporting the same thing. So really, hey Patrick, hit me up with that. I would love to see that script. Hit me up. You can find my email everydayastronaut.com. Hit me up. I would love to see that script for landing a booster in Realism Overhaul. That would be phenomenal. They normally do show the payload launch, but their stream dropped. So yeah, they try to. I don't know. Have I frozen up or are you guys still okay? Okay, so it's hard to tell how much of it was me, how much of it was them having an issues. It's just a Monday, guys. Everybody's got a little case of the Mondays. So, I did want to answer. There was another question. Oh, Block 4 or Block 5? Block 4 is sort of a in-between term because they're continually making iterations anyway. I don't think there's any specific definition of Block 4 or Block 5. For those of you curious, the block changes are when they make changes to the vehicle, to the Falcon 9 rocket. And the Block 5 is supposedly going to be the final iteration, but knowing SpaceX, they will still be tweaking on it just a little bit. So if you go back to the stream, it shows the separation. Okay, so yeah, so realistically, we don't really know. And Block 3 and Block 4 are pretty much interchangeable. I don't think Block 4 is really an official thing. We will know Block 5 when it happens. You'll know it. It's going to be very different looking than it. There will be no doubt that it's a Block 5 when it's a Block 5. And what's going to happen, guys? I believe Block 5 will first fly when they do the Dragon 2 development launch. So the initial test launch of Dragon 2 will probably be with a Block 5. So hopefully sometime early next year, we'll see the first Block 5 launch and land. So we will see. Yeah, so there we go. Do I think they'll attempt a landing of the boosters on Falcon Heavy on its first flight? Absolutely. That's one of the biggest reasons for Falcon Heavy is if you can land all 3 cores, you're recovering 90% of the vehicle instead of 70%, and still able to launch an even heavier payload even further. So absolutely. Yeah, so block version is tight, basically, yes. So block 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yep. Dragon is still their workhorse, guys. I have that video talking about why they aren't propulsively landing the Dragon capsule. Excuse me. Now don't let that fool you. They are still using the Dragon capsule for several years in the future. That's their way of getting not only cargo, but more importantly, crew to up into space for now. That's the only way. They're going to be one of only 2 ways for the entire United States to put a human into orbit using the Dragon capsule. So that's a very, very important aspect of the company is continuing to use the Dragon capsule. It's not getting phased out yet. It'll be a while before BFR and BFS is totally online. And even so, there still might be it might be a while before BFR and BFS becomes as financially reusable and solid as they eventually hope. So, there you go. I believe the block thing is official. I've heard many SpaceXers use the words block 1, 2, 3, or block 3, 4, 5. So, yeah, I said one of only 2 from the United States. So it's Boeing with their CST-100 Starliner and the Dragon 2. Those are the only 2 capsules that will be able to put people into orbit from the United States. So, I will absolutely do BE-4 versus the Raptor. Great idea. Yeah, so I have a video talking about exactly why they aren't propulsively landing the Dragon. Check that out. We go into pretty decent depth, but the biggest reason is really there is no true benefit besides slightly cheaper and easier recovery and refurbishment of the Dragon capsule, and it really does not help their end goal of the way they will be reusing and landing the BFS will be so wildly different than landing a Dragon capsule. So, yeah. Big Falcon ship. Yep, it's the top portion of the BFR rocket. Some people call the lower portion BFB, the Big Falcon booster, just so you can separate BFB, BFS, and the whole thing is the BFR. So yeah, there we go. So I'm just going to let this kind of load up again, just so you guys can check it out. Yeah, that's the drone ship there. We got close, but again, I don't really have control. I have a few controls, but not the right amount of controls. So I do actually have a quick save that we can enter into that should be pretty close. Falcon 9, Falcon Landing 1, I believe. This will show you that reentry process again. We'll go ahead and do it. Big. All right, so this was, I think, after this is just the landing burn portion. So there's still a lot of variables here, so we'll have to see if we can nail it. But let's see what it shows for our 400 meters. That's going to be way too close, unfortunately. So I think this means that we didn't overshoot it enough, because we do have to overshoot it a little bit since it ends up slowing down even more from the atmosphere. You'll see this number gets further and further away. Why don't I use KOS? Because I have no idea how to use KOS. So hopefully somebody can send me a solid link here, and we can get KOS working, and that'd be fantastic. When is the first human going to launch from the Dragon? Hopefully by the end of 2018, or within the year 2018. Actually, almost for sure is really what it's sounding like. So we'll see. I'm excited for it. Yeah, notice that our target difference is getting further and further away. And we can extend our glide range a little bit, but the more we touch the controls right now, actually it'll just continue to bleed off speed. It really doesn't provide lift. It basically, by pitching it all away from exactly pointing straight down, even if you pitch a little bit, it doesn't really provide that much lift. It mostly provides a lot of drag, so it'll just slow you down even more. We're going to be a long ways off, though. But once we're subsonic, like we're getting to soon, then we might be able to glide a little bit more. Lego Saturn V is back in stock. That's awesome. You hope North Korea starts a war. So what? All right, so here we go. We're almost subsonic. I am going to try and point a little bit closer to the drone ship. But again, we can't do this too much without blowing up and just bleeding off even more speed. Oh, see, we're probably going to blow up now. I'm trying to extend our glide range, but we just can't. These have to be very fine movements, and I am a monkey leadfoot doctor. But look at that. So, yeah, I will just try and see if we can even land at all. Like I said, we actually don't have controls like we should. For some reason, it says no connection always. But that's about the best we can do right there, folks. So if the drone ship was right there, that would have been a perfect landing. There we go, KOS script. And this, but is this for actually doing it in RSO? I'm going to try and find that. If that other person could show me that launch. The video, oh, GitHub. Okay, I'm going to find your channel. Here, yeah, or just send me a link in here to whoever has that KOS script. So that's going to pretty much do it for this. I'm going to stick around and answer some questions for you guys if you have any more. We still have plenty of people here. So what we just did, somebody was asking, what is this madness? We're resimulating basically the final reentry of the Falcon 9 rocket that SpaceX just launched. Now, people do need to remember that the biggest thing is that this first stage, re-entering and landing, is secondary to the primary mission of getting something into a working orbit, so geostationary transfer orbit. First stage landing simulator. This is called Kerbal Space Program. It is a heavily modified version of it using realism overhaul and a thing called real solar system, so that it replicates the real world a lot better. It's also a lot harder. Improving it to work with drone ships. That's awesome. The other day, I was able to land on. I can get a pretty smooth touchdown on land. If you guys want to see what a boost back burn looks like, we can do that. But I was thinking about saving it until we have SpaceX doing a land landing, an RTLS, which is return to launch site landing. I was thinking about just saving it until then. So a safe place. Actually, I feel like honestly Curse has a lot of and GitHub. I love Scott Manley. Have I met him? No, not yet. Well, I met him on a FaceTime once, but that's it. So I'm glad. Yeah. So we're gonna do that next time. We're gonna do it for. Let's see. What is the next mission? Is the next mission? Let's see here. Are we doing? Next mission is that Zuma mission, and I believe that is an RTLS, and then also CRS-13. So I'll have plenty of practice doing RTLS. So. What's the dust around the second stage at the end of the mission? So there's, first off, especially at ignition cutoff, there is a lot of particles that were just flowing to get that engine running. There's also a lot of ablative material inside the nozzle of the engine, but mostly there's a lot of pressure bleed off of the liquid oxygen. So there's liquid oxygen and there's liquid RP1, which is their rocket fuel, up in that upper stage, and they're highly pressurized. And as they warm up and expand, they bleed out and they turn into briefly a gaseous oxygen, but in space, in the cold environment of space, it turns directly into a solid. So you actually see chunks of solid oxygen is what most of that dust is comprised of. And probably other, there's a lot of vibrations on that thing. It's probably rattling a few things loose and stuff like that. So what do I think? I don't know if I necessarily know what Zuma is besides a mystery payload. I'll dig around a little bit. Yeah. You did miss the launch. That is correct. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on. So I would love to do something with Scott Manley. You and Scott Manley should do a stream together while you debate some space theme. That'd be fun. Maybe we'll do it in person someday. RP1 is just like kerosene. It's actually, it's the same thing that make airplanes fly. It's just a little bit higher level refined than that. So it's pretty expensive stuff, but relatively cheap. The cost of fuel and oxygen is approximately, Ilan has quoted $200,000 for the cost of Falcon 9 flight. Out of the $60 million, $200,000 is nothing. So it's expensive, but it's, can I tell you what trust is? I don't know what the context is, but trust is when you trust somebody. Where did I get my spacesuit? I happened to find it a long time, 4 years ago. Guys, I'm coming up on my anniversary of the spacesuit, my 4th year anniversary. I got it on this website, rrauction.com. I was one of 2 people to bid on it. And I got it for way too cheap. We don't know how the fairing recovery went, and they'll likely be very tight-lipped about it until they successfully recover one, and then they'll probably share it on social media. So, so any plans on interviewing Ilan in the future? Well, I would love to someday. We'll see. Unless Peter Peters is referring to trust, then I know what you're talking about. It is a real high-altitude flight suit. I did forget about Orion. You're right. It'll be a little while before Orion flies with people in it. Like, it's kind of out of my mindset, to be honest, right now. We're looking at, 2022, 2023 before people actually get on board Orion. Because they aren't even flying on EM1. So they've already done one test flight of Orion on a Delta IV Heavy back in 2014, and that was for mission EM1. That was the first time Orion flew. It was mostly just a heat shield test, and a few avionics checkouts and things like that. That was EFT1. EM1 is coming up next, and I think that got pushed back to 2020. And then it'll be a while now until people will be on it. So most likely like 2022. One-way mission to Mars no, absolutely not. I would not want to be on a one-way mission to Mars. I'm not like an explorer. I'd rather go to the moon, to be honest, than Mars. Mars is just so far away. So much riskier. If there's an issue, you're not 3 days away, you're 6 months at best away. As a matter of fact, that's only when it's lined up. So you might have to wait like a year and a half for resupplies and things like that. So yeah. Did the first stage fire scare me? It did certainly scare me, and then they cut away from it too, so that was sad. yeah. How much would I pay for a SpaceX suit? Well, I'd rather. I wouldn't need a legitimate one, but I'd consider getting one made for me as long as it comes in orange. It's kind of a branding thing at this point. I can't go around changing suits. Let's see. I would much rather personally be a tourist on the moon. There's that connection that you'd be able to see Earth and experience Earth in a whole new manner if you're standing on the moon. I think you just gain a whole new appreciation for it. Something that you can't really do on Mars. The Earth would just look like a pale blue dot, to quote Carl Sagan. I think there'd be a very, very, very strong emotional connection if you're standing on the moon, something that you've seen your whole life, and looking back at Earth, something you've seen your whole life, but from a totally new perspective, would just be crazy. Kind of like when you're standing at the bottom of, say, a tall skyscraper. You look up and you go, oh, that's really cool. And you look around, you get a sense of what's going on. But then you get up on top and you look down and you gain that new perspective of the same thing you were just familiar with, and everything's different. Now imagine that times like literally millions. Yeah, count me in on that. I think that'd be really cool. But I'll wait until it's super routine and like super safe, like flying on an airliner today. I can change my suits like underwear. Where did I get my orange spacesuit? I just answered that a minute ago. Website about 4 years ago, rrauction.com had some stuff. I absolutely agree. 42 space exploration is a very big human unifying thing. I think my favorite example still is the Apollo Soyuz mission. So it was the last flight of the Apollo capsule. A Soviet Union's Soyuz capsule. They docked in the middle of the Cold War. They docked, shared a meal, exchanged gifts, handshake, brought two literal enemies together over the love of exploration. And to me, that's exactly what space exploration is. It's bringing humans all together and realizing that we're all on this planet together. And so many of us have this underlying desire to explore. It's an innate part of human nature. It's why we climb the highest mountains. It's why we've gone to the North and South Pole. It's why we've gone to the moon. It's why we go to space. It's part of who we are, and it really does unify us. So that's a big reason for me. So, I would absolutely love. And don't get me wrong. When I say I want to go to the moon, I want us to go to Mars ASAP, like tomorrow. Please fund it, make it happen. But I want us to go to the moon too. I want us to go to Venus. I want us to land stuff on Europa. I want it all. The answer should be moon or Mars first. My answer is yes. Go. Like, stop. I know that we do need a plan laid out in front of us, but one of my favorite things about the SpaceX BFR rocket, sorry, BFR, saying rocket afterwards, like saying Big Falcon rocket. One of the biggest things is that has enough capability to do just about anything you can imagine. So I would absolutely love for that to go online ASAP and just start exploring with it. Just go on awesome missions. So we will see, guys. We will see. So that's going to actually do it for me today, guys. We need to get into my Discord channel. For those of you that are Patreon members, I need to get this video going hardcore. I have not had time in the past week to really work on it as hard as I wanted to. I want to get a video out ASAP. It's been more than 2 weeks already, or coming up on 2 weeks, and I really want to crank these videos out. So I think we're going to finish up the SpaceX live stream video that we worked on, the beginner's guide, or that I did earlier this year. We're going to get part 2 out, which is basically what we just watched. I'm going to be using Kerbal Space Program. So if you have that script, that KOS script, that will land me on a drone ship in Realism Overhaul, send that my way, please. That'd be incredible. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Honestly, this is great. I have a lot of fun doing this for you guys. Yeah, this is a lot of fun for me. So I'm so glad you guys are here. And again, if you want to help support, please visit patreon.com/everydayastronaut. You can become a member and join our Discord channel where you can help script and research and just have general conversation. We are on there very often. So it's a lot of fun. And also a big thanks to those new sponsors here too in YouTube. This is new to me. It's new to everybody, I think. And a big thank you to all those that also sent a tip and a super chat. Thank you, guys. I hope you have a great rest of the week. We will see you for sure back here in like 2 weeks for that mysterious launch, the Zuma mission or whatever it is. And then about 2 more weeks, I might be at CRS 13, so I'll try to do something there if I can. But otherwise, hopefully I'll be on here to make sure you're subscribed and get notifications, because I do live stream fairly often, maybe a couple times, 2 or 3 times a week, just randomly. So just pay attention to that. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, where you can get updates more often too. So Twitter's Everyday Astronaut. Everything in my entire ecosystem is Everyday Astronaut, except for stupid Twitter because it has a handle limit. So Erday, E-R-D-A-Y, Astronaut. You go there, you'll find, I normally post before I live stream. Yeah, you can find me there. So thank you guys so much for everything. I really appreciate you guys being here. And I'm going to go ahead and sign out. That's it for me. I'm Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, bringing space down to Earth for everyday people. I think we all dreamt about going to space when we were kids. But when the space shuttle program ended in 2011, I discovered a void in my life. That emptiness led to a newfound obsession with space. A few years later, I wound up bidding on a Russian spacesuit as a joke. When the box arrived at my doorstep, my friends asked, "What are you gonna do with a spacesuit?" The answer? What can't I do with a spacesuit? That's how every... Hi, Adam. I think we all dreamt about going to space when we were kids. But when the space shuttle program ended in 2011, I discovered a void in my life. That emptiness led to a newfound obsession with space. A few years later, I wound up bidding on a Russian spacesuit as a joke. When the box arrived at my doorstep, my friends asked, "What are you gonna do with a spacesuit?" The answer? What can't I do with a spacesuit? That's how Everyday Astronaut was born. Since then, the suit hasn't left my side. It's even gone around the world with me. From remote villages in Myanmar, rockets, and spaceships. To beautiful fields in Norway. I'm fighting a cow to get a picture right now.
Here I am on vacation in the beautiful Norway with my beautiful boyfriend.
I even proposed to my wife in the suit at Machu Picchu in Peru. These days I work with leaders in the space industry to create fun and inspirational content. I've even been invited to different NASA facilities across the country, all for the sake of sharing my excitement with the world.
Hey there, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware, but NASA is doing some incredible... This is church for us space nerds.
This is where Gene Kranz was sitting when people first met him. This is with permission. I still don't know how. I love that I'm standing on something that says urine bags.
This thing's gonna fly like a cat and eat. Whatever that means. That dog's gonna have a sore throat by the end of the day, I'll tell you that. Especially once he tries to explain to his friends that he just saw an astronaut flying majestically through the sky for an hour.
This thing has officially become the bane of my existence.
Everyday Astronaut's mission is to bring space down to Earth for everyday people, to communicate science through humor and imagination, but most importantly, to spark your curiosity, to want to find your place in the cosmos. Join my adventures as I seek to find out why exploring space is important, inspiring, and quite frankly, really, really neat. Show your support by visiting patreon.com/everydayastronaut.